Fried chicken is delicious, but some are definitely better than others.
So I'm testing 7 different types of fried chicken coatings to see which one is best, including a cheeky little outlier that I think changes the game.
First up, let's start with the most basic coating we can do with our chicken tenders, egg and flour. We're keeping it as basic as it can be to begin with, so the flour is simply seasoned with salt and black pepper and mixed together. Then in a separate container, crack some whole eggs and beat them until smooth with a whisk or a fork. Then dip the chicken tender into the beaten egg, followed by your seasoned flour until completely coated. Or if you fancy a slightly thicker coating on your chicken, you can go in seasoned flour, then beaten egg, and then back into the seasoned flour to completely coat the tender. Deep fry at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until cooked through, slightly crisp and a light golden brown. You'll see the first tender, which was just egg and flour, is a lot paler in colour than the flour coated tender. Our single coating was a bit floppy, and when it came to texture and flavour, it wasn't anything to write home about.
Maybe half. Probably a 0 out of 10 crunch factor.
So to level up the texture of our chicken tenders, we're going to move on to breadcrumbs. And we use fresh breadcrumbs first, so we'll take some white sliced bread, remove the crusts, cut it into pieces and blitz it down into fine crumbs, and then place these crumbs in a separate container. Then we'll take our chicken tenders by panning them and coating them in seasoned flour first, then beat an egg, followed by the fresh breadcrumbs until the tender is completely coated.
You could give your chicken a double coating at this stage if you wanted to for a thicker, more robust crust, but chicken tenders are pretty thin and lean, so they don't take all that long to cook. So with that in mind, I think 1 coating is probably more than enough, and that way you don't run the risk of drying out your chicken while you're trying to crisp up that thicker coating. But for a cut like chicken thighs that need that extra time to cook through properly, it's a good option to have.
Carefully lower the fresh breadcrumb tenders into the hot oil and deep fry at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until a rich golden brown. And just with the addition of fresh breadcrumbs, we've already drastically improved the texture of our fried chicken tenders.
It's like a 3, maybe a 4 on the crunch.
So let's kick it up a level and replace those fresh breadcrumbs with Panko. If you've not heard of Panko, it's a Japanese-style dried breadcrumb made from crustless white bread that's processed into flakes and dried, resulting in a lighter, flakier, crunchier texture than fresh breadcrumbs, which makes them ideal for coating fried food.
The bread used for Panko is actually cooked using an electric current run through the dough instead of baking it in a traditional oven. The current heats the dough and then uses the dough's moisture to steam the bread from the inside out. And because this cooking method develops no crust, the Panko breadcrumbs are a uniform white colour all the way throughout.
So the same process as before to coat our tenders: seasoned flour, beaten egg, and then tossed in the Panko breadcrumbs. Then deep fry at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until cooked through with a light and crispy golden brown crumb, resulting in a chicken tender that is still enjoyable, slightly crispier than our fresh breadcrumbs, but overall still pretty average.
Yeah, that's very similar in the crunch and the fresh ones, to be honest. Not much difference, but still tasty. One benefit of Panko breadcrumbs is its consistency in its final colour. It's always a really pleasing light golden brown once it's fried. This is the fresh breadcrumbs and the Panko side by side, both cooked for the same amount of time and the same temperature, but you can see there's a drastic difference in colour. I found when making my own breadcrumbs the colour can differ, probably because I'm not always using the same brand of bread, so the protein and the sugar content can differ from loaf to loaf, and this can affect how quickly the breadcrumbs colour when you fry them, which means your crumbs can get too dark while you're still trying to make sure that your tenders are cooked all the way through. The benefit with Panko is it colours a lot slower, so it means that you can cook the chicken all the way through and your Panko breadcrumbs are still a lovely light golden brown, which for me is definitely a tick in the pro column for Panko.
One way of leveling up the Panko crust is to season it properly before coating the chicken. So into the Panko breadcrumbs add salt, black pepper, MSG, onion powder, garlic powder, smoked paprika, cayenne and dried thyme. Give everything a good mix together and just like before, flour, eggs and into the seasoned Panko breadcrumbs to completely coat the chicken. Deep fried at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until cooked through with a crispy golden crumb, and the end result already looks better with those spices giving that crust that deep, rich colour on that fried chicken crust. And the flavour, well, there's just no comparison.
Spiced breadcrumbs over plain breadcrumbs any day of the week.
Another option for crispy chicken coatings that goes a little beyond the realm of our traditional breadcrumbs are cornflakes. This cereal makes a great alternative coating as it fries really well, doesn't colour too quickly and stays crisp and dry for a long time after cooking. We'll skip the plain version as I'm sure we can all agree that seasoning the cornflakes properly will yield a better end result. So crush down the cornflakes into a coarse crumb and place into a container with corn flour and the same seasonings as we had before: salt, black pepper, MSG, onion powder, garlic powder, smoked paprika, cayenne pepper and dried dried thyme. Give everything a mix together to create our cornflake coating. Then just like we've done on all our previous tenders, flour, egg, and then into the cornflake dredge, tossing and pressing the chicken until it's completely coated. Deep fried at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until crispy golden brown, and you can't tell me that crust doesn't look incredible. And the texture and the flavour is the best of everything I've made so far.
Fucking tasty, I can tell you that. Definitely a strong contender.
Now, I can't make a video about fried chicken without including the GOAT, buttermilk fried chicken. I'm ditching the flour and egg this time and replacing it with buttermilk, which we will use to marinate and coat our chicken tenders. So in a mixing bowl, add the buttermilk, hot sauce, and some pickle brine. This is just to get some of those classic flavours you associate with fried chicken into the marinade. Then for the herbs and spices, I'm going to keep it simple and use what we've been using all the way through up until this point, because if it ain't broke, there's no need to fix it. So salt, black pepper, MSG, onion, garlic powder, smoked paprika, cayenne pepper, and dried thyme. Whisk everything together until smooth and the buttermilk marinade is ready to go. Place your chicken tenders into a container and pour over the buttermilk marinade, or as much as you need to completely cover the chicken. Use your hands to move the tenders around a little bit to make sure everything is coated and marinating. Then seal the container and place in the fridge for up to 48 hours. Now, in a pinch, you could use this straight away, but the whole idea of the marinade isn't just to impart flavour, it's also to allow the acidity of the buttermilk to break down the proteins in the meat and tenderize the chicken. Not so much of an issue when it comes to chicken tenders, but for tougher cuts like wings and thighs, it's definitely going to make a big difference. While that's marinating, let's make the dredge for our chicken. I'm using plain flour and potato flour as the base. The addition of potato flour seems to be a very popular choice for dredges such as this due to its high starch content, as it helps create a lighter, crispier, and more satisfying coating compared to using just plain flour alone. Then I'm using the exact same spice blend that I've used for everything else so far. Please don't make me list it again. Then whisk everything together and transfer to a container ready to dredge. The next day, remove your tenders from the buttermilk, allowing any excess marinade to drip off, but still keeping the chicken nicely coated. Toss the marinated chicken straight into the seasoned dredge, turning it over and lightly pressing until completely coated. If you're looking to make the crust a bit more crispy, you can always splash a couple of spoonfuls of the buttermilk mix into the dry dredge and give it a mix together to create lots of little lumps of dough or batter. These will stick to the chicken when you throw it into the dry dredge and turn into lovely, craggy, extra crispy bits when you fry your buttermilk chicken. Deep fry the chicken tenders for 4 to 6 minutes at 180 degrees C. The coating's a little bit thicker than the rest, so it takes a bit longer, but once the chicken is cooked through, golden brown and looking like this, your buttermilk fried chicken is good to go. I mean, just look at that. It's absolutely stunning. And taste and texture wise, this was definitely the front runner so far, and I couldn't resist adding a little bit of hot sauce for good measure. And with that, you might think we've covered everything, but I've got one more I want to show you. Instead of breadcrumbs and batters, we're going to go totally outside the box and make some Ramyun noodle crusted tenders. I'm using a couple of packs of these nongshim noodles along with the soup mix and vegetable packs they come with in order to season and flavour our noodle coating. Use something heavy like a rolling pin to crush the noodles down into small pieces and mix through all that seasoning. And once it looks like this, into a container and we're ready to coat our chicken. Same as before, flour, egg, and then into the noodles, tossing the tenders and pressing the coatings onto the chicken until completely coated. Then straight into hot oil at 180 degrees C for 3 or 4 minutes until the chicken is cooked and the noodles are a rich golden brown. Now all that's left to do is give this Ramyun noodle crusted chicken tender a little test drive, and I think this is the one I am most excited about. Well, mixing those spice packets in with the noodle dredge, that is the way forward. This Ramyun crusted tender was so delicious, I had to whip up a little Ramyun honey sauce to go with it, and it was exceptional. So for me, the Ramyun coated tenders were the winners by far. Something a little bit different, super crunchy, and extremely delicious. The cornflake and the buttermilk fried chicken were pretty much neck and neck for second place. Then it was the Panko breadcrumbs, and all the other coatings, well, they served a purpose, but I won't be rushing back to them anytime soon. Check out my Patreon for the full recipes, or if you fancy watching some more, why not try one of these other videos I personally let YouTube pick out for you.